Welcome everybody to How to Improve Your Condition in Life. This is part 3, Increase Your Income and Prosperity. It's an Indy Bridge event produced by the OT Association. And this is our contact information in case you don't have it. indybridge.org is our website. And this is for information on upcoming events and contact information. info@indybridge.org. If you have questions or suggestions, you can email us. And Indy Bridge on Facebook. Just search and put it in quotation marks. Otherwise, you'll get all kinds of other things. Indy Bridge, and it should come up. And if you have a friend who's on Indy Bridge, you can ask them to invite you, or you can request to join straight from the website. All right. Okay, our next OTA event, just so you know, is How to Talk to People About Scientology with Mark Schreffler. That's Saturday, July 13th, 2024 at 10 a.m. Pacific. And the OT Association is an organization of OTs. We're all volunteers. We just want to promote LRH tech in the field and promote the technology of Scientology in a positive light. Our members are Trey Lotz, OT8 Class 9, L's Auditor. Randy Smith, who is also our speaker today, OT7 Class 9 Auditor. Z Snyder, OT8 Class 5 Grad and Auditor. Jerry Tunadal, OT8 Class 9 Auditor and CS. Ingrid Hoffman, OT8 Dianetics Auditor. Greg Cohen, OT8 Class 2, and me, I'm the OTA Chair and your Master of Ceremonies. I'm Mary Blackford. I'm OT6 and doing solo knots and retraining on all my levels, so I can audit too. All right, here we go. Enough about us. Let's roll. Now, just a reminder for all of you, if you have questions, type your questions into the public chat. Or you can just select Z or me in the chat and ask your question privately. We won't use your name in any case. Or you can just raise your hand. It's under the reactions on menu at the bottom of the screen. Or right next to reactions, it should be actually. Okay. Randy is our guest speaker, and I'm going to turn the floor over to him right now.
Thank you, Mary. So today I'll be talking about the how to get more success on the third dynamic, which I'm sure all of you know means groups, organizations, clubs, whatever kind of organization. Even if you have your own business and you're in business for yourself, you can consider that an organization in a way. Okay. And conditions are declared on the basis of statistic. Let's see, definition of condition. Is that before or after this slide? We have a slide on that. Okay, well, we'll get to that. Let's look at statistic. Definition of statistic is the relative rise or fall of a quantity compared to an earlier moment in time. For example, if a section, which means a part of an organization, if a section moved 10 tons last week and 12 tons this week, the statistic is rising. If a section moved 10 tons last week and only 8 tons this week, the statistic is falling. Number 2, a number or amount compared to an earlier number or amount of the same thing. These statistics refer to the quantity of work done or the value of it in money. And the complete definition of this is available in the admin dictionary. I won't go over the rest of these. Okay. Now, if you can't get a statistic, it all becomes rumor and you will soon be in trouble. So what does he mean by that? Well, you're trying to figure out what actions should I take to achieve prosperity, success. Well, one of the first things you want to do is get a statistic. You want to start plotting statistics of what are the different things that you're producing. For example, income or sales or delivery, like hours of auditing or pages written if you're a writer, or you want to get a statistic on whatever it is you're doing. And only then can you start to apply the conditions correctly. Otherwise, it's all just rumor and not really based on anything. Okay? So let's look at the table of conditions. These show from bottom to top non-existence, danger, emergency, normal operation, affluence, power change, and power. So as you follow these condition formulas, there's a formula or recipe for each one of them. It will help you achieve the next better condition. And as you see from the names, the condition sounds better and better as you go higher and higher. Now, I would like to emphasize at this point, this talk is not intended to replace an actual course check sheet on learning this technology. This is an introduction, and we can refer you to courses you can take on this later. Today, I'm going to concentrate on the condition of affluence. Now, let's take a look at the definition of affluence. First of all, affluence means great wealth and abundance. Now, the roots of the word affluence are recognizable in Latin affluentia, which refers to something that flows toward someone. And I found this very interesting. In other words, affluence means something very good is flowing toward you when you are in affluence. So let's take a look at what would be some examples of affluence um, in everyday life. Number one, you just won the lottery. Boom, you have a huge windfall of money all of a sudden. Big, big affluence. Another example, you just signed up a new client for your business and they pay you a large advance in money. Or another example, your sales and income over the last several weeks have increased at a steep upward amount compared to before. You were getting 50 sales a week, and then you started getting, and you were always in the 20 to 30 range. Let's go to the first graph, affluence graph, please. Yeah. So there's an affluence graph. So you see how it went steeply up, especially, and there was one down week a couple of weeks ago, but overall the trend is very steeply up. That's a good affluence graph. Graph number two shows another affluence graph. This is a more steady upward swing, but it's a definite upward trend of the stats. Okay, those are, and then there's a third example. Here's another affluence trend. See, the individual weeks are maybe different shapes, but you look at this, you sit back and you look at the overall trend, and it's very steep uptrend. That's a good affluence. So let's go back now to the formula. And so what do you do when you have an affluence condition? Now, this is all something we want to achieve. We want to achieve affluence. Typically, what happens when you get a big affluence? The first impulse is, well, let's go out and celebrate. Drinks are on me. I'll buy everybody's dinner and we'll buy that new car we've been looking at and we'll take a vacation, you know. But if you look at the formula, that's not what it says for number one. This is maybe kind of counterintuitive, but a person who is applying affluence, when they hit affluence, the first thing to do is economize. Now, what does that mean? Economize means to try to save money by reducing the amount that you're spending. For example, an individual can economize on food by not eating in restaurants so much all the time. Or you look around your operation and you find a way to get your supplies at a cheaper cost, maybe. All these are under economize. Or uh, you look around and find any other ways that you can save money. Caution, just be sure that by saving money on these things, they do not cut out things that helped produce the affluence in the first place. But we'll cover that in the next couple steps. Um, Example, let's say you hired a new receptionist last month, and you're thinking now, hey, I've got an affluence and I'm supposed to economize. Maybe that new receptionist is too expensive. I'm paying her a lot of money now, and I didn't do that before. Maybe I should get rid of my receptionist. Hold on. Look at your graphs and your records for the month, and you might see that you've gotten a lot of positive comment from customers about that new receptionist. And the increased sales started taking off a week after hiring them. So don't economize there. That receptionist may have been part of your affluence. You get the idea? So this is where you want to be careful. Yes, you want to economize, but don't cut things that are helping you in affluence. Number two, pay every bill. Now, as L. Ron Hubbard says in the lecture, The Five Conditions, which I highly recommend. It's called The Five Conditions. At this step, I believe he says, you scrape up every bill you can find and pay it. Number three, invest the remainders in service facilities. Make it more possible to deliver. So what does that mean? Service facilities. Well, this could be equipment. You have an old printer that's 5 years old and it hardly works at all, and you need a lot of printing done, and you really need a new printer, and you found a cheap way to get a brand new one, blah blah blah. That might be a thing to do because once you've done step one, two, now ready for step three, you might want to get a new printer if it's really going to help make it more possible to deliver. That's what you're looking at. Is this going to make it more possible to deliver my product? Or, well, hey, we hired a receptionist and that really helped. And you know what? I'm doing all the sales myself and I really need to turn over some hats. I'm going to hire another salesman. That might be part of step three. So now let's take a look at step four. Discover what caused the condition of affluence and strengthen it. Now, here is one of the most important steps of applying the affluence formula. This is where you need to do your intelligent sleuthing or investigation of what really caused the affluence. This can involve looking back over the statistic, looking over the graphs, and try to determine what you were doing when the statistic really started to turn upward. It may have been some action you did just prior to the upswing, or it might have been in the example I gave of the secretary you hired a month ago, and 3 weeks ago the affluence began. But this is where you really look in depth at what caused the condition of affluence. It's never luck. It's never just happenstance. It was something you did or your organization did that brought this about. So you want to find it and write it up so that you can keep it in as a matter of your standard procedure. And that is how you're going to strengthen this affluence. Okay, good. So that is an example of how to apply this affluence formula. And this one is related to money and business, where a lot of it has to do with money. Okay, let's see. What have we got next there? The grass, yeah. Now here's another form of affluence. This is called action affluence. And this is what you apply if the stats are based on actions rather than money. So let's say you have an affluence in um, pages written. You're a novelist, and you got out 5 chapters this week. Usually, you only get out 1 chapter a month, but your actions are in affluence. It's not directly related to money. So how do you apply affluence to these actions? Well, let's take a look. Number one, economize on needless or dispersed actions that did not contribute to the present condition. So you just look around and say, well, let's see, what do I do? Well, how can I economize on needless actions? Well, I've been watching a little bit too much TV, you know. I'm going to knock off the TV. I'm going to limit it to half an hour a night or something, you know, get more sleep, things like that. And look around. I mean, there may be some other things you can do to knock off needless actions. Economize financially by knocking off all waste. Yeah, I've been eating out too much. I'm going to cook at home more, whatever. Two, make every action count. Don't engage in any useless actions. So basically, you want to continue doing what you were doing that produced this affluence of production. Make every action count. So let's identify what are the real actions that count. Okay, well, sitting down at my computer at a particular time every day, that seems to be a successful thing. Yeah. So you start writing down what actions have I been doing that produced more production, produced more gains here? And what are some of the useless things that really didn't contribute to this? Good. So you write all those down. Number three, consolidate all gains. Any place we've gotten a gain, we keep it. Don't let things relax or go downhill or roller coaster. So, hey, I think I'll start keeping track of how many words I write per day, you know, because I really did a lot this week. And oh, that's right. Another thing that really helped was I talked to sources about the subject of my novel, and it really gave me inspiration. That was a really good action. So you write that down, and you're going to do more of that. You're going to talk to more inspiring sources, whatever. And number four, discover for yourself what caused the condition of affluence. Yeah, I think that was it. As you analyze this, you go, yeah, you know, I talked to that one guy who knew all about such and such that I'm writing about, and it really inspired me, and it just made me more enthusiastic about writing it. So that's why I turned out several chapters this week, you know. Five, applying the formula of the condition one is in. Yeah, that's actually a mistake. That should not be part of this. I believe that's part of another formula. So this one actually ends at number four, and that's action affluence. Um, so next slide. Yeah. So if the action affluence or the affluence about money formula is applied correctly, one rises to the next condition. Now, here's the third affluence formula. Now, this is one we call affluence attainment. Now, by attainment, of course, we means how do you get there? How do you acquire something? How do you arrive at affluence in the first place? So that's what this formula is about, how to get there. Number one, hard work. Well, that's easy to understand. Any affluence involves hard work. Two, in ethics, doing things ethical. I probably don't need to explain that very much, but you're not going to cheat people. You're not going to do criminal things. You're going to do things which are really on your purpose line, especially like for me, I'm primarily an auditor and a case supervisor and a trainer. And if I concentrate on those purposes, I find that I'm in ethics and my statistics are good. 3, standard tech. Learn the tech of your job, whatever it is. It could be auditing, it could be gardening, it could be playing the violin, it could be accounting, but there is a standard tech to any job. And by standard, LRH defines this in the Class 8 course, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it has to do with the general degree of quality adequate for a specific purpose. That's how he defines standard. So when you're trying to find the tech of any job or any task, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a degree of quality adequate to achieve a particular purpose. Number 4, doing the things that won, not new things untried as yet. So whatever your level of activity is right now, you may not be in affluence, but there are some things that you can identify which have won for you, which you've had success doing. Like let's say you're a beginning auditor and you haven't got too many pre-clears yet, but you'd like to get more. But you have audited some and you've had some success with auditing. So just look it over like, okay, how did I get that first PC? You know, look that over. Oh yeah, well, I got my comm lines out. I applied, that's right, I applied non-existence with the such and such a group. I told them who I was and what I did, and they sent me a pre-clear. So you write down some of these things, doing the things that won, not new things untried as yet. So you can repeat these things, these winning actions. One example in my practice is whenever I have a person complete something, and you've seen them, I send out the success stories. Somebody completes a training course or they complete an OT level. I ask them, would you like to write a success story? And usually they say yes. And I say, would you like me to publish it? It'll help acknowledge your win and it'll help inspire others. And they very often say, sure, sure. So I send it out. And well, guess what? My income goes up every time I send one of those out. It's like magic. So to me, that is one of the winning things of my practice is just publish the success stories. Almost nothing else in terms of marketing or advertising. But every job or every position will have its own things like this that you can identify. And then number 5, this is where you apply the formula of the condition one is in. This is where you look at the graphs and you determine, well, what condition am I actually in? Another way to tell the condition you're in is look over the formulas. And sometimes just by looking at the formula, you'll discover, yeah, that is the formula that applies here. For example, let's say you have a small organization and you find that you are having to bypass employees to handle certain things. I had to bypass reception. I had to bypass sales. I had to bypass on finance. I had to bypass on this. So you're looking over the formulas and, that sounds like a danger condition, senior danger formula. I think we have that somewhere, Mary. Do we have the senior danger formula in there? Maybe we left it out of this one. It'll be there. Yeah, there it is. And so this is the one that suddenly appeals to you, that because the senior executive finds himself or herself wearing the hat of the activity because it's in trouble. Yeah. So by looking at the formulas, you can tell this is what I need to apply. Now, this tells when it's assigned. There's another slide about showing the danger formula, what you would actually do. That's the junior one. We may not have the senior one here, but we can give that. This is when it's assigned, but it's not really the formula. But we'll
Yeah,
have
I think we removed the formula, Randy.
yeah, so we can give a reference to that. But let's look at the junior danger formula. This is similar steps. Bypass habits or normal routines. Yeah, this is what the guy would have the juniors apply. So if you're the senior and you're assigning danger to the organization, you'd have each employee apply this. But that's an example of the action affluence. I mean, the affluence attainment, where the last step is apply the condition, apply the formula of the condition you're in. Okay. I think that's about all that I was going to talk about today. So we covered 3 affluences, just to summarize real quick. The first affluence formula is about money and how to handle it in terms of finance. The second affluence formula was action affluence, which had to do with actions rather than money. And the third affluence formula is affluence attainment. How do you achieve a condition of affluence? So these are all worth studying and practicing every day. And then we can take a look at power. When you do this successfully, when you apply affluence, you will go into a condition of power. And let's look at the power graph, first of all, what a power graph looks like. There's a power graph. It's where you've had a long affluence, and then it goes up into an entirely new range up there toward the top in at least a normal condition. That's a power graph. Here's another one. A normal trend in a much higher range equals a power condition. And I think, are those all the graphs we have on power? Yeah, good. So let's go back to the power formula. So when you get into power, here's the formula of how you keep that going. The first law of a condition of power is don't disconnect. And that's, well, here's an example of violating it. A person in a small town um, moves away and he becomes very successful. He becomes rich. And he says, well, I'm so rich and important now, I don't need to communicate with all those people back in my hometown anymore because I'm a lot more important than that, you know. So he disconnects from the old place, all the old town people and so forth, maybe even parts of his family. Well, guess what? He won't be in power very long. There will be bad things happen because he disconnected. There's a lot of examples of this. So the first law of condition of power is don't disconnect. Number 2, make a record of all of its lines. Write up your whole post. This is where you write up your hat. You write up your job. How did you get to where you are? What are the successful actions that you have been taking? How do you do your job? What are the important things about what you do? Make a record of those so that you could turn this into turn it over to someone who's going to take care of it. Part of the power condition is you may start to feel overloaded because you're in such power, you have so much activity going on. It may be a good idea to turn over your hat to somebody. Or what if you want to take it easy someday? You get to be about 80 years old and you're not doing quite as much as you could before, but you have some successful actions. So you write up what's been successful for you. So you can turn that over. You can train somebody else in what's been successful for you. And then you do all you can to make that job occupiable. Or you build up a company. You make a real success of a company. You make a lot of money. And hey, I don't need to run this company anymore. I want to turn this over. I want to sell the company. But you'd like the company to be successful. You want it to be a success to the person you sold it to. Apply this power formula. Write up everything about it. Make it occupiable for the guy that's taking it over. Everybody will be much happier. And that's a brief thing about power. Okay. So I think that's all that I will talk about today. Mary, do you want to take it away from there?
Sure. Does anybody have any questions? Let's see here. We have some of the conditions leading up to affluence here, but I don't think we need those. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip through that. IT, see any questions? Z, how about you? We kept these in case we needed to speak about other conditions leading up to affluence. Any questions at all?
Not seeing any so far.
Yeah,
Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
Okay, Randy, I don't know how to put this. What if there are external influences that are keeping one from prosperity? For instance, you're working hard, your ethics are in, but the pandemic happens, and I've got a business where that impacted it, hugely.
Right.
And in a lot of aspects never really recovered from it, because then the economy came in and inflation, I have an entertainment type business,
Mm-hmm.
and inflation came in and it leaves its mark on that, where then we were trying to economize and figure out how to get our profit and losses in order, and even changed the type of restaurant we were running, so that we weren't, our labor costs got in line. So sort of doing all of these things, but then what's going on in the culture or the economy are things that are like not controllable,
Mm-hmm.
obviously.
Yes, I
What
hear you. I hear you.
that kind of situation, problem?
Well, to me, what this calls for is a more detailed statistic analysis. For example, uh, when the pandemic hit or when inflation hit and so forth, you probably took some actions to try to respond to that, right?
Right.
In other words, you might have had some big down statistics for a while because of this, uh, in which case you would need to be applying the formulas for those down statistics. But then you might have hit a point where, yeah, we're starting to get a little response to this, a little response, even though it's not nearly in the range it used to be. We had a little uptick in sales, a little uptick in that. So you want to be sure to take note of that, where you do get little gains, even against the general avalanche against you. so that you can strengthen and isolate those things that seem to be working. Does that help at all?
It does, yeah, and actually it's exactly what we've done, but it's still disheartening, you know.
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Randy, we have another question. I sent it to your private chat. It is in the main chat, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A question is affluence, attainment, hard work. What would be some examples? Does it entail the decision or vow to work hard? Yes, that's right. Hard work. What would be some examples? Um, yeah. Let's say, well, you look it over, you say, okay, I want this business to succeed. How many hours am I actually spending on the business per day? 2 hours. The rest of the time I'm watching television. Well, that's if you take a good hard look at that, well, I could probably work a little harder, you know? And that's probably a pretty obvious example, but uh, I think hard work kind of can have a negative connotation that, oh, this is hard work, this is a lot of effort, this is unpleasant. No, it doesn't have to mean that. To me, hard work means you're really doing what you're doing while you're doing it, and you're really doing something that's on purpose. You're spending your time in something that's really going to forward your purpose. You know, that's to me what hard work is.
Mm.
And you find out when you're doing that, and this is my own win on that, at the end of the day or at the end of the week, if you've been doing that, you don't feel like you've been working hard. You've actually been enjoying life. And and my wife tells me my statistics. Hey, your stats are up this week. You audited 25 hours this week, on 20 different people. And I go, wow. It didn't feel like I was working that hard. But the point is if you're doing something on purpose, that's hard work. But it does not have to be unpleasant. Okay?
Very good. Thanks, Randy.
Sure.
Yeah, Randy, I was thinking when I was teaching, students were told, study hard.
Yeah.
Study hard. And some parents had the idea that, and some students as a result have the idea that this meant hours and hours of reading, or some of my students literally thought they had to memorize their textbooks or doing all-nighters. And these are all false pieces of information.
Yes.
When I taught study skills class, it was like students will say, well, we're supposed to study hard. And I said, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean to study hard?
Good.
But
Good
doing
question.
what you're doing while you're doing it says it pretty well. And here's the ways you could be doing that study to achieve what you want, and then go have time to play or
Mhm.
do a sport. It doesn't mean parking your butt in a chair for 10 hours at a time or pulling
Right.
all-nighter. Does not
Yes.
mean that. And the
Good
same
point.
thing with work. Same thing with work. And here's something that occurred to me while you were talking. It helps to have an idea of how long it takes and what it takes to get a valuable final product, which we didn't really talk about, but the valuable final product is the one you want to exchange. In study, it would be getting the homework done, getting the paper done of a good quality where you can trade it for a grade or a score of some kind. And if I were to say, make fancy pillows, how long does it take me and what does it take me to produce that pillow?
And there'll be
And
a standard
use
test
it.
to any of
Mhm.
these things too.
Right.
Right?
I mean, it could take me 8 hours to make a fancy pillow, or it could take me 2 if I focus
Mhm.
and don't watch Bridgerton while I'm doing that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Or writing. Yeah. How many pages do you do? Time isn't always a good indicator, because writing has its phases throwing raw material onto the page and then editing or revising, or maybe you have to fool around with an idea before you get that whole page of dialogue or whatever you need. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Good
it's
points.
what does it take to get that valuable final product? I think.
That's right. Good
Yeah.
points, Mary. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Z says, work smart, not hard.
More
Yeah.
efficiently. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Right. Cut 4 layers of fabric at a time so you can make 4 pillows rather than cutting for one. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, make 40 yards of bias tape while you're sitting there instead of just the 4 or 5 you need.
Yes.
Or
Or
yeah.
yeah. Or measure once, cut twice would be the wrong way to do it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I
Just
think
make sure-
Tony had a question. There was a
Oh.
raised hand. Tony,
Okay.
you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, you have to unmute, Tony. Unmute your microphone. Still muted over there, Tony.
While Tony is figuring that out, I was also thinking as part of a non-existence formula, there should be, of course, a business plan, or business plan should be a part of the non-existence formula. And by looking at your business plan, you probably can determine how much work you have to invest or how much time you have to invest to attain affluence or to attain growth. So the steps probably kind of jump out from the plan, and you know what to do or how much time to spend or how much hard work you have to do.
Yes, and that's a good point. A business plan, you hear a lot about, well, have a business plan, do a business plan. To me, you use these condition formulas to make up your business plan, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're
Exactly.
if you're just starting a new business, your business plan would probably revolve around the applying the non-existence formula, right?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, but I was just saying that it also probably shows you the scope of or the amount of work that is necessary or needed, amount of work, amount of effort, amount of time, energy, even maybe financial investment or whatever.
mhm.
So you will probably see how much work you have to do, and then you have to set priorities. Okay, I'm going to spend this much time on my work and this much time on other things. So that could probably
Sure.
be part of that first step of attainment.
That's right. Good.
All right, I think Tony's ready.
Tony's ready.
Ready? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we
Yes.
hear you.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of comments that goes with this. In our landscaping and gardening business, I would like, so let's say I was doing maintenance every week or two at a place, and I would lay out when I finished that one day or hour what I intended to do the next week because that's what was needed. But then the next week came about, and I would always have to look at what is needed and wanted right then and there because plants and climate and customers change. So it was always prepared for that. But because I laid out a plan back the week before, it always worked better rather than, oh my God, what do I do?
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
that was,
Perfect.
yeah.
That's a good
That was-
example. Yeah.
And then when I find, I don't know if this is with others, but when I find I'm going along on a particular course and I wake up in the first of the day and it's like blank in a sense, there's this, what's needed and wanted. Oh, get out of bed. Look at my schedule for what I've planned to do. And it's interesting. What are the conditions right now that I need to follow to get what I intend to do handled? Because the condition, boy, can it change? Just talking
Yes.
about going on Knott's auditing. Oh my goodness. it's a new moment every moment, you know? It's like, wow. So yeah, thank you.
That's a good point. So I think the upshot of that last one is that be prepared to look at your condition may be different at any given moment or day, right? Depending on what's happening. Very good.
Okay, any other questions? I
All right.
actually have one, but it has more to do with starting a business. When you start a business and you want to find out what your public needs and wants, what's the best way to go about doing that? I mean, we do surveys for Indie Bridge topics and whatnot. But
I think
if you don't even know where to advertise or focus,
Well-
what would you do?
that's a good question. I think that's where you need to get creative at basically surveys are the key to stats. That's an LRH quote. So you do want to survey what's needed and wanted, but it can take this is where some creativity comes in, is how do I really effectively survey for what I need to find out? And there could be a lot of different ways to do that. One way would be to sort of identify who is my target customer, who is my target public here. Are they all gardeners all over town, or are they television producers that put on TV shows? So you first identify what is my public. Are they aspiring writers that want to learn how to write screenplays? So once you identify your public, that may give you a clue to, now how do I survey them? And the way to do that is apply the non-existence formula. You find a comm line. So what are the comm lines that these people are on? What are the comm lines these people use a lot where they would see my survey, And that might help you to identify, how do I survey my potential public?
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Mary?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Sure.
There was a question when we made a survey or had a survey on Indie Bridge. Somebody was asking, I'd like to know how one can deal with becoming more prosperous, but then feeling guilty about it, and how to get past that poverty mentality.
Oh, yeah. Get auditing. Go up the bridge. That's a very good thing, and it can be a big barrier for people. Uh, but I find as I'm auditing people, like on the expanded grades,
Yeah.
Grade 0, grade 1, grade 2, getting auditing on those grades will really help to get rid of those unwanted feelings about things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have so much technology. There is something called the false data stripping, where people have weird concepts about certain things, and you can just go and kind of clear those off for them
Sure.
without auditing.
Yes.
So that's one thing I was thinking of when I read that question,
Mhm.
because it's a common thing, I think, that people
Yes.
have these considerations, in their space, that they have fear of success.
Sure. Or
And
like all rich people are basically evil, right? That type of thing.
exactly, our
Yeah.
money is bad, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Very false data like that. Yeah.
exactly. And there was one more question
Hmm.
was asking, and maybe we answered some of those. It says, I'd like to know which are the key points to do and not to do, regardless of what your condition is. I think we discussed some of it.
Yeah, I
But
think,
if you have anything
well,
else to say.
my basic answer to that is try to keep your stats as accurately as possible and make sure that you're keeping a stat for the major activities. For example, you may have a sales job, and maybe you're keeping stats on how many sales you make, but you might also want to keep a stat on, well, how many contacts did I make? how many phone calls, how many emails, all of those
Substance.
things. And you'll see a relationship between those stats. Oh, look, I have an affluence this week. How did the other stats affect? Oh, look, the week before, my number of contacts went up. And the following week, we had an affluence. You'll start to see those relationships between activities. That's where the stat analysis can really pay off.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Randy.
Sure.